Greetings, fellow 6th Avenue friendlies. Tiki here.
And Jacob Wile, too.
And welcome to another fist-bumping episode of Tiki's Universe. That's right, it's the show where, oh my god, Magica's back! Magica, oh my god! Ah!
Yeah.
Talk about not bearing the lead, right? Oh, I am hyped, Jacob. I am hyped. Spoiler alert, folks. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sure they're just watching it for our opinions anyway, instead of like a full-on plot review.
Of course. So, wow. Yeah. First of all, I want to give a big thank you to everyone who watched our recaps of last week's episode. We got a really big, nice bump in viewership. That was really nice. Always nice to see our efforts pay off. And I apologize for this coming out a little bit late. I was actually having trouble finding the episode online, and the Disney XD app wasn't cooperating with my computer. Actually, I tried the Disney XD app on like 2 computers and my phone, Jacob, and I still couldn't get it to work. It was crazy. So
that's weird.
Yeah, so this is a little prolonged, but alas, we're here to talk about it, to break it down. And oh man, I mean, Jacob, of course, the magica of it all. I mean, the magica, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that's like the last 30 seconds of the episode, but I would say, like, that is even bigger than the Della Duck cliffhanger at the end of episode 1. Like, I love how the show is seeding in, like, all these little plot threads that are, it feels like a nice, it feels like we've got a lot going on, you know what I mean? And even something that seemed like a relatively inconsequential episode, like the like the first Ma Beagle episode ended up, there was some continuity between that and that. We're getting to know all the, the characters are tying together through their actions in the series. So that's really encouraging to see.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sorry, let me close my windows so the birds aren't bothering us. Anyways,
the only birds we want are the ones in front of us.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jacob, I think this episode holds up incredibly well on the rewatch. I think there's just so many. It's just really funny. It has a lot of good gags in it. The writing on it, Jacob, is just so tight, so solid, and that's one of the things I just want to give props to this show for, because this show could have easily just been a quick cash-in, but no, they're obviously putting a lot of effort into it. Because what I love about this episode is how it's just, I just from a storytelling perspective, this episode is doing a lot of things right for me. It introduces a new character, which we'll get into very shortly, who I like so much that I hope she becomes like at least a new like reoccurring character, if not like a main side character or something like that, because I think she fits in like a glove, honestly. I really but it also gave us a lot of funny jokes and also some sort of some good meta humor in there as well. So I guess we should start with the new character of Lena. So Jacob, did you like this character as much as I did?
Oh yeah, I loved her. I wasn't too sure about her at first because new character and all that. Because as you know, any new character suddenly appearing out of nowhere suddenly raises a few flags, of course. but she very quickly she grew on me. Almost from the get go.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really nice. Again, one of the many things that this episode does well in terms of writing is planting the flag of Huey, Dewey, and Louie having all the in-jokes with each other, and then throughout this episode, Lena and Webby develop a bunch of in-jokes. And that's something that I don't know, this episode is just really, it's really relatable to me in terms of like, developing friendships and, awkwardness and, and fights and all that and everything that comes along the way. I don't know. Like I said, I'm really high on it. It's like, this could have easily gone south. You know what this could have easily been is just like, Lena's just like a one-off character who is just sort of like a bad kid and Webby's like falling in with the wrong crowd. You know what I mean? Could have easily been that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm glad they didn't go down that route.
There were a couple of times where I was worried there would, especially the moment where it looks like Lena abandoned Webby. And might I say, that moment hit hard for me because I do have abandonment issues when it comes to friendship. And let's just say some of my personal relationships have ended in relatively the same way of like, someone just walking off and me presumably never seeing them again. So I don't know, man. The moment where Webby is just sitting on the beach by herself, that really got to me.
Yep.
So in spite of the fact that, you know, I didn't necessarily like, obviously it's revealed that the Beagles captured Lena, and she didn't abandon Webby, but you know, in the moment it was effective. And anyways,
though she was perfectly willing to abandon the nephews.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's kind of understandable considering the nephews pretty much abandoned Webby in the first place without so much of a thought. Because one of the things that we've seen about Webby, this characterization of Webby, is that she's very much a pushover. You know what I mean? Like, she'll very much do stuff to make other people happy outside of, you know, making herself happy. So in that regard, I feel like the nephew's just so easily going along with when Webby, you know, when there's not enough room in the boat and Webby's like, oh, it's okay, I'll stay behind. You know, the nephew's really, and I'm saying this is actually, it works well in terms of the plot. I'm just saying, you know, from a logistics point of view, they really should have been like, oh, you know, it's okay, Webby, you know, like, we'll, you know, or they should have just, I don't know, did it bother you, Jacob, that they should have just tried a little bit harder to fit all four of them in the boat?
Well, they did offer, and she kind of backed up anyway. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, they did offer to have her come anyway.
I guess. I don't know. What I'm saying is that she's, you know, she's just so much of a pushover sometimes that, anyways, it's not important. It's not important. Anyways,
yeah. I mean, I didn't say that. I didn't say her leaving the nephews behind wasn't deserved. I was just putting that out.
Okay. So I feel like we're kind of burying another lead, and that is like, what the hell is up with Ma Beagle and all her different children? Oh my God. This is some serious procreation going on right here, Jacob.
I have no idea. Well, they are dogs. Dogs have big litters. Who knows?
I guess so, right? This is more like hamsters than dogs.
More like rabbits.
Right? Oh, man. So,
he even adopted a few of them.
So,
like, we think they're adopted. we concur on that notion.
So one of the things I really like about this episode is that when we first see all the different Beagle Boys, like all the different variations, it looks like it's just going to be a one-off gag, like, haha, look how funny it is that all the Beagle, you know, all the different variations of them. But actually, throughout the course of the episode, in less than 22 minutes, we get to know each and every one of these groups in some way.
And they're all voiced by the same guy.
Right? Like, that is quite impressive. That is a quite impressive feat of character, in my opinion.
Eric Bowles, you're impressed us yet again.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, man. So, what was your favorite Beagle Boy interpretation, like, variation?
I don't know. They were all quite unique in their own way, even though we didn't get to see that much of them.
But we got just enough of a taste to get their different personalities. You know what I mean?
Just for the sheer ridiculousness, one of my personal favorites was those skateboarder ones.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned them because I'd like to think they're pretty much a direct reference to an extremely goofy movie.
I don't know. I mean, that does sound like a bit of a stretch, but I mean, it's entirely possible. Like,
I mean, they just have the design of, like, you know, the X Games people in extremely goofy movie. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just everything about them just screams like 90s, like rocket power. I don't know.
I did notice that, like, referencing outdated slang and lingo. Like, okay, it was cool back then. Probably not, but probably wasn't even cool back then.
Right. No, I don't necessarily think rocket power was all that cool back then, or an extremely goofy movie for that matter. So I digress. I like how the Cirque du Soleil Beagles are played as like the serious, like horror kind of ones, you know, the scary ones. That was well done.
Yeah, they were kind of creepy actually, especially in the playground scene.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, like, you gotta love the contrast.
What I do like about this episode is it actually does make them out to be a legitimate threat.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Ma Beagle especially.
Yeah, everybody as a whole turned out to be a threat. I mean, they weren't exactly pushovers in the original show, but you can tell they're like more of a threat here, especially with how varied they are.
Well, like I said, I think the main intimidation comes from Ma Beagle herself, just in terms of how she's able to rally all of them to do her bidding. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which can all be easily undone by a simple question.
That's what I'm saying. So I think the Beagle Boys on their own aren't intimidating, but it's the motivation and the presence of Ma Beagle that keep them really interesting.
As she did say, you all may be different, but you have one thing in common: you love your mom.
And Margot Martindale, I gotta say, she's killing it as Ma Beagle. I'm really starting to grow into it. I gotta say, the transition the first time she appeared, like, you know, from June Foray to her was, you know, it wasn't as smooth as something like, you know, as something like Alan Cumming. You know, I'm sorry, not Alan Cumming. God. I'm sorry.
Alan Young and David Tennant.
Yes. God, Alan Cumming. Anyways, I'm sorry. You know what I mean, though. It wasn't as smooth of a transition as that. Like David Tennant from the get-go just felt natural. You know, he was very different from Alan Young, but he fit like a glove in his own way in this interpretation of the show. Whereas Margot Martindale, I feel like I kind of had to grow into her, but I feel like this episode definitely cemented her a lot more than the first episode did. Not that the first episode was bad, but I do think the first episode with her was probably it was a good episode, but it was probably the most plain episode of the DuckTales that we've got so far.
Yeah, I do have to agree in a way to that. Like, though I do, like, you gotta love it, just like how seriously, how comically, yet dramatically over the top she is, almost at the same time.
Oh yeah. Okay, let me see. Any other Beagles we need? I guess I really like the contrast between the 6th Avenue friendlies and the 6th Avenue meanies. And the Deja Vus. And the 6th Avenue meanies. And the 6th Avenue friendlies. And the Deja Vus. Although I gotta say, outside of that one gag, the Deja Vus were probably the group that had the least screen time.
Yeah, ironically, funnily enough, they never appeared again after that.
Right.
You think we got the Deja Vu's like,
I mean,
hey, it's us
they're
again.
in crowd shots at the end, but, you know, that's about it.
I mean, you think they'd be like, hey, look, it's us again.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So you know what else this episode does good, Jacob? Because this episode is just damn well constructed.
What?
I honestly feel like even though they don't have that much screen time in this episode, this might be the best take on Huey, Dewey, and Louie that we've seen so far.
As a group, I would definitely agree.
Yeah, like in terms of like getting all 3 of their personalities down, Huey is definitely starting to emerge as the leader. I'm liking that. Like I'm feeling him more and more as like the, you know, the one who's not really a goof off. Like, you know, he's not uber serious or anything. You know what I mean?
It's like Huey's the serious leader, Dewey's the adventurous troublemaker, and Louie's the slacker.
Right. Yeah, and that's really starting to come into fruition for me. Very, very much so. And I think this episode, like I said, even though Huey, Louie, and Dewey are not in like 2/3 of it, that, you know, what they do get is really well realized.
Yeah, I mean, like, you definitely feel more of a brotherly bond here than the previous ones, I must admit.
And this episode basically goes out of its way to make fun of the previous incarnations.
Like this is basically the first one, except for Quagbag, to give them separate personalities. So like, this is a dig at the entire canon.
That was by far the best joke in the episode, was when they're all talking in unison.
Like, while trying to deny it, like, no, we're not. That was weird. Stop doing it then.
How does this keep happening?
Anti-disestablishmentarianism. Seriously? Yes, but seriously, what did make them all think of anti-disestablishmentarianism?
Yeah.
The world may never know.
Oh god. And you know what? Even though Scrooge isn't in this episode, which is like, was there ever a DuckTales episode in the original that Scrooge wasn't in?
Yeah, I think like 2 or 3.
Okay. But I love how his presence is felt in this episode, though. Because I like how when you see McDuck Manor from afar, you're like, oh, he's there. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Strangely enough, though, David Tennant is credited for this episode.
Well, I mean, that's not out of the ordinary when it comes to animated shows.
I know, it's just I guess I don't know. I mean, I just found it kind of weird.
Yeah. Of course, I like all the, the added backstory stuff we're getting with Webby. How I like how she points out that she lived with a British granny in a Scottish mansion, so she didn't hear an American accent until she was 7 years old. That was fun. That was kind of a logitistic thing we don't really think about.
It honestly doesn't explain why she doesn't have one of those accents, honestly.
I mean, I guess you're right, yes, but again, it's sort of the show poking fun of itself at that point, I think.
It's just I know it's a one-time joke that not meant to really mean anything, though.
Yeah. Let's see. Again, this episode is freaking gorgeous when it comes to the animation.
I noticed a lot of people I noticed a lot of people commenting on the animation, and its style seriously died down. Like, once they actually saw the show in action, they're like, "Oh, this actually isn't that bad."
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I personally, I think it's wonderful. I think it's like, I've loved the animation style since the very beginning. Like, when we first saw that concept art with the Jeep and everything, I've loved it. But, it's definitely taken people a while to get used to. The one thing I have to give props to this episode, it's a very specific thing with the animation, is the lighting. The lighting in this episode is freaking gorgeous.
Yeah, it's like you can tell they're really putting a lot of effort into all areas of production here.
Yeah, and of course,
I also like the music in this episode as well.
Of course, there's a lot of background characters, with all the different beagles. So there's a lot of background stuff going on. There's some fun in-jokes that I noticed. I noticed the word brony on spelled out in graffiti. I was like, ah.
Okay. I didn't notice that, but I don't doubt it.
It's right after Lena and Webby are escaping are running from the birthday party after throwing the cake in Ma's face. But anyways, let me see. Oh, I also like the little. This is very random in particular, but I like the little random gag where Webby and I think Webby and Huey are talking, and Louie is getting like raised up in the background by these birds.
Yeah, and like it's never brought up or mentioned again.
Right. It's just like he's having this weird like confrontation with them. That was very fun.
Captain Lost.
All right, I think I've pretty much ran the gambit. I will say, like, if I were to give any sort of nitpick at all about this episode, it's that at this point in the series, I don't know, like the Webby charm is, to tell you the truth, wearing off on me just a tad bit. And I've always been like the biggest advocate of this interpretation of Webby. To tell you the truth, I think in this episode there were certain moments where they sort of pushed it in terms of just how quirky she was. I don't, like I said, this is just like a nitpick. Like, I'm trying to like grasp at straws, because honestly, Jacob, like, I think this episode might be better than the pilot. I really do. And the pilot was fantastic, but of course the pilot was 2 parts, so I'm mostly counting the first part of the pilot. But I mean, the thing about the pilot was it was just really, really exciting to see the show and to be like, it doesn't suck. It doesn't suck. It's actually really good. You know what I mean? But I think this episode really, last week's episode, like I said, I like the Great Dime Chase more than the other one from last week, but I still think both of them weren't really, like Blue Dragon 5 watched them and he said that they weren't really up to his standards in terms of compared to the first episode. But I think this episode, it totally just shows the promise of the show, not just in terms of, storytelling, character building, just how much they can pack into 22 minutes and still make it really satisfying. But also, of course, it raises the stakes with the Masacre reveal at the end. It's just all around just super satisfying. Like, I'm just loving this show.
I can't wait to see how it goes from here. And so what's on the roster for next week then?
I am looking that up right now, actually. And next week, folks, I actually will be able to do a podcast, even though I'm going to be on my trip, because I'm going to be with Monkey, and Monkey's actually going to join us next week, Jacob, and I'll be live with him So that'll be fun.
DuckTales?
Let's see. So next week is the Terror of the Terra Firmians. Of course, the Terra Firmians are a familiar group of bad guys from the original show. So it's fun that they're tackling something like that so early on.
It might be comic villains too, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure they are. All right, so we will definitely have that up on Saturday. Because I'm going to Universal Studios on Saturday, Jacob, and I'm going to DVR the episode at Monkey's house. So I'll have the episode waiting for me when I get back from Universal Studios. So we'll plan it out. I'll be in contact with you. We'll make it happen.
And I'll pray that the Disney XD or Disney Now, whatever, doesn't screw me over on the episode.
Right, yeah. So, like I said, folks, thanks for being a little patient with us, because this is a couple days late. We are about to do Rick and Morty, just kind of changing gears dramatically from DuckTales to Rick and Morty. But if you want to see Rick and Morty, our take on the season finale, we'll be going live with that in just about a half hour. So, yeah. All right, Jacob, any last words on DuckTales?
Nope. I really just thought this was a very well-made and interesting episode.
All right. Thanks for watching, folks, and join us next week.